What's up everybody, welcome back to the RA Visuals YouTube channel. So today I have a pretty exciting one for you. And so in a previous couple of videos, if you saw them, we went on a random used PC parts hunt and we actually came out on top by piecing together a pretty good $115 machine that could actually play some games at 1080p. And if you want to see those videos or that previous video that I'm talking about, I'll link it up here for you guys. So today on the other hand, I have taken this a step further. Obviously when we tested what I'm calling the potato PC last, we saw that it could play games, but not really at respectable numbers with maybe one or two exceptions. So I recently did some more PC deal hunting and I found a few graphics cards for some awesome prices and one of them that just might fit this build perfectly. So the GPU is the ASRock Phantom Power RX 560 from AMD. Now I was originally going to replace the power supply in this system and install a different card that I was going to try to find on the used market, but this one is so low power it only has a 65 watt TDP, so it doesn't even require that 6-pin PCI power cable. Pretty awesome, right? So now assuming that our 350 watt PSU can accommodate this card, and it should, this should allow us to basically increase our graphics performance by 460%. Wow. Now, of course, those numbers are derived from various benchmark runs on the internet, so obviously we need to run our own tests to see what actually happens. But before we get into that, let's go ahead and roll our intro and hear a word from our sponsor. Let's go. URCDKEY has discounted codes for games and software that are a fraction of what you would pay if you purchased them from a retail store. More specifically, they have great prices on their Microsoft Office 2016 bundle that comes with a Windows 10 license as well. If that's not enough, you can also use my promo code RAV20 to receive 20% off the already discounted price. Just type in your product you're looking for, add it to the cart, view your cart, head to the checkout, type in my promo code, once again, RAV20, and see the sweet savings appear. Check the links in the video description to learn more. So the first thing we're going to do is fire up some 3D Mark again and run it through our Skydiver benchmark once again and see if we made any improvements. So now let's go back to those games we tested in the first video and see what improvements we've made with this new GPU. Again, we'll start things off with some Dota 2. If you remember from last time, we were only getting around 53 FPS at medium-high settings at 1080p. And this time around, we were actually able to take advantage of DirectX 11, not DirectX 9, and then we were able to basically max almost everything out at 1080p and get an even better frame rate than I even thought. As you guys can see here, we were basically hovering around the 90 FPS mark, sometimes jumping up a little bit more, but usually consistently staying around 89, 90 FPS, and it was an overall very smooth playing experience, much smoother than the last one. So this shows an awesome improvement even at higher settings. Diablo 3 was no different, with me being able to actually turn up all the settings to high. And even with a bunch of effects and things going on the screen, we were able to get an FPS of about around 120 to 130, just depends what's happening on the screen, obviously. So again, huge improvement from our last run. Now, if you remember our last run of WoW Classic, we actually left the slider at classic settings, which is basically the level 3 on the graphics slider in WoW. And this was the only game that was able to hit 60 FPS in our last iteration of this gaming build. But this time we were actually able to turn our graphics settings up to level 7. That's what was recommended by them. And as you can see, we are getting somewhere from around 130, 140, sometimes even higher in this game, which is a gigantic improvement. Once again, it's over double what we got last time. So very, very awesome showing from this graphics card and this build. Okay, and now on to the games that our last iteration of the build kind of struggled with a little bit to maintain a solid FPS for the game. The first one was Csgo, and as you can see, I was able to basically max everything out, turn everything all the way up. And this time around, we were able to achieve an average FPS of around 130 to 140 frames per second. And if you guys watched the last video, that is a gigantic improvement from our last run, making this game so much more smooth and playable, which is needed for an esports title like this. So, and if you wanted to achieve just, an average 144 frames per second for a 144 hertz monitor, something like that, that would actually be attainable using this graphics card in this build right now. Next, we're going to move on to BioShock Infinite, and last time we were struggling to get a solid frames per second even at very low settings, but this time around we're able to crank everything up to ultra, and as you can see we are getting a very playable frame rate in the mid 80s and maybe getting a little bit higher sometimes or dipping a little bit lower just depending on what's happening on the screen. But this goes to show you guys just certain games take a lot of graphics power, and this is no exception right here. So this graphics card upgrade did wonders for being able to play this certain game. So for Battlefield 4, we were able to seriously improve again, taking our quality from the lowest settings up all the way to ultra. We went to the test range again, and if you remember last time, we were struggling to even hit 30 FPS, and this time around we were able to hit 45 to 50 FPS, sometimes just a little bit higher at the highest settings in the game. So obviously if you wanted to go ahead and hit 60 FPS consistently, just drop it down to high settings, maybe take a shader off or two, and you'd be hitting that no problem. And again, if you even lowered it a little bit more, you could go ahead and hit even higher frames than that. But again, this graphics card upgrade did wonders for this game as well.
So now that we know that our potato PC isn't so much of a potato anymore, let's go ahead and try some more modern and demanding games to see what it can do.
Starting off with Fortnite, we were able to go ahead and turn up all our settings to high. And with this preset, we were able to achieve solid 50 FPS. And if we wanted to go ahead and achieve 60, we could just, lower a couple things. And if we wanted to go ahead and use the, the pro settings, we could probably get even more frames per second on this game. So it was an overall very playable experience, which was basically not possible with our last iteration of the PC. I don't think this game would barely even run. So it's pretty awesome to see with just a GPU upgrade, we're able to play a more modern game that is very popular right now, and somebody that has a PC like this would probably be playing. So it's very cool to see that this PC is able to actually run this and run it pretty well. The next game I wanted to test was Doom. Now this is a very well optimized game, and it seems to run well with pretty much any hardware. And this was no exception, as I was getting, a very steady anywhere from 70 to 80 frames per second. I know it's hard to see on the screen there, sorry about that. Doom has its own, performance metrics on the screen, and it kind of gets jumbled up, especially when I'm trying to record the screen like this. So just bear that in mind. But yes, using the Vulkan API, we were able to achieve around 70 to 80 FPS solid, and it was a very awesome play experience from this little build, and pretty impressive for an RX 560 and this little i5 we got in this system. Now, with our 500 gigabyte hard drive really filling up, I only really had room to do one more game, and I decided to do a game that I used to do all the time with all my tests, and that is Crysis 3. This is a game, if you guys know, will still crush different systems to this day, and that is because this game was extremely hard to run even when it first came out. So let's see if this little build can actually handle this game at medium settings with 2x AA on. And as always, I always test the first rain scene because it has a lot of particle effects going on, and it's very hard on your GPU. But as you can see, we're achieving around 50 to 60 FPS in this scene right here, and it is handling it just fine. As you can see, it does dip around in the 40s sometimes, but for the most part, it's around 50, 55 FPS. And then once we get inside, it's the exact same way. It actually goes way up in the 60s. So very playable experience, and pretty insane that $165 PC can run Crysis. That's the main question, guys. Can it run Crysis? The answer is yes.
Okay, so that is going to conclude our testing for today on the $165 version of this system, and I have to say, the numbers we saw on the internet definitely didn't lie. If you take into account the fact that in every game we were not only able to increase our visual settings, but we were also able to see massive gains in every game we tested previously. Also factoring in that we are now able to play modern games that are even more taxing on our system, it just shows that with a mere $50 GPU upgrade, and now that is a used market price, obviously, because I found this used, and your mileage may vary on that kind of pricing, but this PC basically went from the level of a potato to an entry-level hustler PC in the matter of minutes that it took me to install the new GPU and just download some drivers. So what do you guys think of this idea? Would you guys hustle the used market and build a PC like this of your own? Tell me in the comments below. Also, if you enjoyed this video, please remember to smash that like button so I know you guys are actually enjoying this type of content that I'm putting out. Now, I know I only tested a few games with this PC, and that's honestly because the main hard drive, it's only 500 gigs, and it was seriously running out of space so fast. And if you've used those, spinning hard drives, they kind of fill up fast and then they get really bogged down and get slow. So maybe the next video may have to be me installing an SSD in this thing to see if our load times and snappiness improve, which Spoiler alert, probably will. And if you guys want to make sure that you guys see that video, consider getting subscribed and turning those notifications on. That way you'll know exactly when I do post it. But until then, you guys and gals have an awesome day, and I'll see you later. Bye.